As highlighted by experts, the concept of age-friendly housing has several dimensions to it. A useful definition comes from a European project called Homes for Life that considers that a home is age-friendly if it supports independence and autonomy, if it allows to remain active and healthy throughout lifetime, and if it promotes social inclusion and engagement within the community, while at the same time respecting lifestyle choices and evolving needs as people grow old. I think what this translates into concretely is first and foremost physical accessibility of the homes and the neighborhoods. And this may seem quite obvious, but actually, if we look at the physical characteristics of our housing stock in Europe, 70 to 80% of existing buildings are not really suitable for independent living for an aging population. And there are estimates, for instance, of 3 million adapted homes needed in Germany, 2 million in France, and I could mention many more. We also have to keep in mind that in this regard, the biggest challenge remains the modernization and adaptation of the existing stock. You have to think that in Europe, on average, every year only 1% of the housing stock is newly built. So, of course, the homes that already exist pose the biggest challenge. At the same time, it's important to highlight a positive development is that there are increasingly a body of regulation and standards at the national but also at European level that can help in this sense. And I would like to mention the concept of lifetime homes, which was developed by experts in the UK. And it's interesting is that in that it's about ordinary homes. They are designed to incorporate 16 design criteria that can be applied universally and at a relatively low cost to new homes so that they are suitable for all stages in life, which is important because we should keep in mind that designing homes that are adapted to the needs of older people is actually good for everyone in the end. It's not just for older people themselves. Secondly, it's also important to keep in mind that homes should be affordable for people at a later age. For example, if we take into consideration also the cost linked to paying the bills, especially for heating, older people living alone are more likely than the rest of the population, according to Eurostat data, to be impacted by energy poverty. In 2018, almost 1 out of 10 households composed by a single person over 65 declared they could not afford to keep their home warm. And we are aware that the quality and energy performance of the buildings can have a big impact with regards to this. In some cases, it can also be a matter of basically downsizing, or actually, maybe we should say right sizing, as shown by the fact that more than half of older people in the EU are living in underoccupied dwellings. One interesting example trying to tackle this situation is from the Netherlands, where a group of housing associations have set up a special real estate agent service for elderly tenants that helps them finding more suitable homes in terms of size and in terms of adaptation within the stock of the housing association. And it's a service that is now spreading throughout the sector in the country. Also, among the issues that are affecting older age group, isolation and loneliness are also very important factors. And it's important to foster a sense of local community at neighborhood, at street, at building level. To To cope with this situation, housing providers, members of Housing Europe, are establishing a range of interesting initiatives and solutions. Some of them are, for example, coming up with the co-housing projects or intergenerational living initiatives that are indeed really interesting in creating a sense of community and of sharing the daily life. Last but not least, it's also important to think of housing not just as a home per se, just as a dwelling, but as a place where services of a different nature can be centralized and delivered. Most importantly, the delivery of health and care services to allow people to age better at home. And for instance, many housing associations in the UK offer independent living services. Also interesting, the French Association Delphis, that provides innovation services for the French social housing sector, has a specific label that is called Habitat Senior Service, that aims at increasing non-dependent elderly tenants' access to adequate housing and services. We see there is a widespread assumption that the elderly people tend to live in a specialized retirement housing, such as shelter housing, nursing homes, care homes, so on and so forth. But actually, the majority of old people generally will live in their homes, whether they are rented or owner occupied. So, one of the main challenges for the housing sector is to ensure that the general, non specialized housing stock is able to cope with the demands of an aging population. However, there are also options for those with more complex supported housing and care needs, for example, through small scale community living projects. And there are also solutions for people who do need medical care, but are basically ready to leave hospitals. For instance, the Curo Housing Group in England offers step-down accommodation for adults that are discharge ready, but who cannot immediately return to their home. But it gives them an option to basically leave their hospital bed and stay in accessible apartments with care and support services delivered at home directly through partnership with health professionals. And this kind of projects has proved to cost significantly less than a hospital solution. This is a very broad topic, and there are relevant guidelines at international level, such as the World Health Organization framework for age-friendly cities and communities that includes housing as one of its 8 domains. However, I would like to stress a few points. So first of all, we should keep in mind that the needs of older people are diverse and they're also changing over time. So the next generation of senior Europeans will have different characteristics from those of today. So we believe there's no one-size-fits-all approach, and basically no model can be expected to work everywhere. But this means that policies at local and national level should start from analyzing the needs on the ground and then provide different options in their strategies. Secondly, senior housing is an area that is also increasingly attractive for investors, and that will be also probably become even more important in the future due to demographic trends and the booming so-called silver economy. However, it's important to highlight that it's key to target public support towards initiatives that are not profit driven and that can guarantee affordability and access also for those who would otherwise be at risk of housing exclusion. And finally, safe and supportive housing, but also housing related service and arrangements can do much to promote health, prevent injury, delay the need for institutional care, reduce social isolation, and so on and so forth. And this is why a public investment in this sector should be considered in the light of the high social return it can bring, and eventually even the savings that it can generate for the public purse, for instance, in terms of avoided healthcare costs.